Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to the Rustic Von Lodge. And it is my Epic Comic Book Wednesday. Every Wednesday, I talk about a Marvel Epic collection, and Steve Donoghue on his channel will talk about that same Marvel Epic collection. It is our world's finest team up that we do once a week. So this week, the Marvel Epic collection that we're talking about is this fantastic Marvel Epic collection. This is Conan the Barbarian. Conan the Barbarian, Volume 3, The Curse of the Golden Skull. So this Marvel Epic collection reprints Conan the Barbarian, issue number 27 through number 42. And it also has material from the annual from 1973. I believe that was a reprint annual, and if I'm remembering right, it was just a cover that they're reprinting in this comic. This is a pretty important Epic collection, actually. I don't know if you saw my previous Epic Wednesday video where I talked about Conan the Barbarian, volumes 1 and 2. I did them together because they are the volumes that have Barry Windsor Smith's Conan issues. Barry Windsor Smith was a tremendous artist. He was fantastic, and he is a big part of why Conan the Barbarian was a huge success, which it was. And so when he left, it was troubling to Roy Thomas, who was writing the book and editing the book. And Barry Windsor Smith had left temporarily before, and he was replaced by Gil Kane, who did a great job. But Conan is a very detail-oriented book. It was a lot for Gil Kane to do this kind of story monthly. So when it came time to replace Barry Windsor Smith again, Roy Thomas chose wisely and went to an artist who had done a ton of work for Marvel. He's done the Avengers, he's done Fantastic Four, he's done a bunch of stuff. That's Big John Buscema, and he was perfect. I mean, just the perfect choice for this book. You might not have thought so because most people thought of him for being a superhero artist, but John Buscema never really loved doing superhero stories. This heroic fantasy, sword and sorcery comic book was more his type of stuff. He had a great time drawing Conan. He really liked doing this. And I think it's the best work he's ever done was this work on Conan, and there's a lot of it. He drew Conan in the color Conan comic book, and in the black and white Conan color comic book, Savage Sword of Conan. He worked on both of those books forever. Years and years he worked on the Conan comic books. And to my mind, he is the greatest Conan artist. When I picture Conan in my mind, I picture John Buscema's Conan. He was the first, his Conan was the first Conan I experienced. I got old back issues of Conan, and they were all John Buscema's Conan. I didn't see Barry Windsor Smith's Conan for years, not until I was in my 20s at some point did I see that stuff. So, yeah, I like this guy a lot. John Buscema is just a great artist. He does fantastic work in this. His initial work, this is his first splash page right there of Conan, the Blood of Baal Hissar. This takes place right after the War of Tarim, which has taken place in the previous few issues of Conan the Barbarian. It's kind of like Roy Thomas's Iliad. And so that's all over. So Conan is riding away and he's going to have further adventures. So he's a little older and a little wiser than he was in the last couple Marvel Epic collections. And the artwork is pretty great right off the bat. A very different style than we're used to with Barry Windsor Smith. When Roy Thomas talked to Stan Lee about John Buscema taking over for Barry Windsor Smith, Stan Lee asked him, well, how do you think readers are going to take to this? And Roy Thomas said, well, I think we'll win fewer awards and we'll sell more comic books. And I think that was probably true. The artwork isn't as... well, it's not as fancy as Barry Windsor Smith's. It's more pulpy, which is appropriate for the character. It's got a ton of excitement and movement. It's a very dynamic style. It's not as detailed, certainly, as Barry Windsor Smith's artwork is. And so Roy Thomas was sure to get some inkers that could do detailed work. Ernie Chow is the artist. He gets to do it. John Buscema was actually not a fan of that inking, but I think it's beautiful. He does just beautiful work in this book. Now, John Buscema's Conan is a much harder, a much more savage-looking Conan. He's got heavier features. He's always frowning. He's a lot... you look at him, and he just seems to be a much tougher character. I mean, there is Conan drinking. That's pretty much how we picture Conan to be a lot of the time. He's a much harder character. He's a lot tougher. Look at him right there. If you had seen those old paperback covers that Frank Frazetta did, Buscema's Conan actually is a lot more in line with the character that you'll see on those covers. As you could particularly see here, as he's standing atop a pile of foes in the hand of Nurgle. Just great savage work. Also does some of those quiet moments that you saw in Barry Windsor Smith. He's just an excellent, excellent storyteller, John Buscema. He's done so much comic book work. He really knows how to tell a visual story dynamically. He knows how to compose a page that's full of emotion and excitement. Things just really flow along in John Buscema's work. He also got this giant splash page as Conan recalls some of the horrific monsters he's battled in the past, and you'll recognize them all if you had read the last two epic collections, and if you haven't, well, goodness, why haven't you? There he is, always looking like he's just on the ragged edge when he's fighting this Conan. Not a character you really wanted to mess with. Just look at those rugged, heavy features. He really developed a distinct look. Over time, he really seemed to get that look more and more. And you see Conan's profile there. That's a very John Buscema Conan profile. He looked like a real guy, Conan did. He didn't look like your typical superhero character. He had the close-set eyes, the wide nose, the big jaw. He just looked exactly like what he was, which was a barbarian. But it's not an exact version of Robert E. Howard's Conan, but the Conan in the comics certainly is a bit like Robert E. Howard's Conan in a lot of ways. And I think John Buscema's Conan seems to echo Robert E. Howard's Conan probably more than Barry Windsor Smith's did. In fact, I feel certain of that. As far as the stories in this epic collection, as far as the stories which were written by Roy Thomas, they're pretty good. I wouldn't say that they're any better story-wise than they were in the Barry Windsor Smith issues. They are interesting, and plot-wise, they do jump around quite a bit. Theme-wise, they do. There's a thing that Roy Thomas was doing in this particular epic collection a lot, which was he was taking either stories that Robert E. Howard wrote, Conan's creator, but they weren't Conan stories. So he was taking non-Conan stories and adapting them to be Conan stories. And in one point, he takes a novel by Norvell Page that wasn't even a Conan novel. It was a novel called The Flame Knife. No, Flame Winds by Norvell Page, which I've never read. Norvell Page was a pulp writer who used to write the Spider pulp stories. And he did this kind of fantasy adventure story, Flame Winds, and then Roy Thomas just took that non-Conan fantasy novel and turned it into a Conan novel. So he was adapting all of these from all this other material. And I don't know if it was just because he was so busy that he didn't have time to come up with plots on his own. So he was taking these plots from other places and turning them into his Conan comics. That seems the most likely to me, that is what's going on. I am not certain, though. But I think that's probably why we're getting all of these non-Conan Robert E. Howard stories turned into Conan stories. And just a random novel by Norvell Page, for example, that was just turned into a few issues of Conan. That's an odd choice. There were fun issues. I'd kind of like to read that Norvell Page novel if I could ever find a copy. I'm sure Steve Donoghue can tell you all about it. He's probably read it. I'm almost certain he probably has. We do have one other artist that does a fill-in issue, and that's Neil Adams. The legendary Neil Adams does an issue in here. His Conan is not bad. You never know how his characters are going to turn out, but he does a good job on Conan. He's done a few Conan stories, and his Conan always looks pretty much like you'd expect Conan. Adams does tend to have the thinner characters. Steve Donoghue was not happy with his portrayal of Thor in the epic collection I showed you last week, and that's fair. That's actually pretty fair. But his art is... I like Neil Adams a lot. His art is always a lot of fun. Whether he is the sheer genius that Neil Adams would say that he is, I'm not sure. I liked his Batman work an awful lot, I know that. Pretty much everybody did. Not a perfect fit for Conan, but I thought his Conan was decent. But he certainly is no John Buscema, that's for sure. Just brilliant adventure artwork that is consistently great. I think that's the way I would describe John Buscema. Consistently great in his Conan, at least. Every once in a while, he would draw some stuff that wasn't the best. But in Conan, I think he liked doing it enough that he tended to do really, really good work. And he did pretty much until the end of the Conan run in Savage Sword of Conan. Some of those issues weren't his best, but the stuff you'll find in here, The Curse of the Golden Skull, really great stuff. Highly recommend it. Yeah, brilliant Conan work. So, Volume 3 of Conan the Barbarian Epic Collection. Be sure to check out Steve Donoghue's video later on today. I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, because sometimes I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure he's not going to hate this. I'm almost certain he's not going to hate this. I think this is when he really liked Conan, was right around here or right after this. We'll see, though. I mean, he surprised me before, but we'll see. Definitely check out Steve Donoghue's video. And thanks for stopping by once again for my Epic Comic Book Wednesday. I'm hoping I have a video up tomorrow. I'm hoping because I want to get David Gemmel's Legend. I want to get that video up. But we'll see. I never know how my work week's going to go. So I will definitely, though, see you next time. And next time I will be at Stately Vaughn Manor. Okay, guys. I'll talk to you next time.